50 years ago, no small appliance in my house was safe. I had this overwhelming desire to learn everything I could. And so I found that, like many autistic children, the best way to learn about something is to take it apart. Now, I had no intention of making things work again. So our home was like a graveyard for the clock radios and the mixers and things. I used to be mystified watching my mother talk on the phone to Auntie Dell for hours, sit on the kitchen floor. We had one of those old wall phones, and the cord that was all twisted and tangled, and he used to watch my mom walk around the kitchen and stretch that cord out, and they would talk for hours, and I just was totally mystified by that. And my parents knew that phone was not safe, so they put it really high up on the wall. But eventually I grew, and my chair pyramid skills became really advanced. So I got that phone off the wall. And I did what I do. I dismantled it. I was sitting on the kitchen floor playing with all the parts like they were all little individual toys. The bells were rolling around and the dial was everywhere and cords were pulled out of the wall. And about this time, my father walked in the kitchen, and instead of walking in with a gasp, as was my dad's style, he just looked at me and said, "Jim, would you like to know how that works?" He did the best job he could explain to me how the telephone and telecommunications work. But even more importantly, he explained to me why my mother was upset with me. He said, "She just wants to be able to call Auntie Dell, but you broke the phone." Very simple. And I learned that day how varying perspectives can impact a situation. What you need to know about my father is he was a lifelong educator, and he was a high school principal since before I was born. His love to teach was only topped by my desire to learn. I was an incredible learner. And so the next day, in the spirit of education, he brought me a shiny new book. And I'll never forget it. It was the Lineman's and Cableman's Handbook. To this day, 95 years after it was originally published, went through many revisions, of course, that book is the Bible of the whole telecommunications industry. And even as a youngster, I could read something that was very advanced and get my arms around how something worked. And that education paid off because some of my most innovative solutions that I've delivered around the world have been related to people trying to get in touch with people over the telephone. And I remember in late May 2013, I was standing at the site of a large hospital system in the States, and we were working on a project to transform the way that patients who needed help could get a nurse on the phone. These calls were life or death. It was, if the calls don't go through, we could have somebody that wasn't getting the medical attention that they needed. So the stakes were very high. And after 10 years of planning and 15,000 documents being curated and thousands of people trying to make it all come together, we had one night to get it right. The whole team walked around, people were talking to themselves and praying and making sure that everything was okay. And for me, hope isn't a strategy. I knew it had to go well. So I just connected back to the one metaphor that always roots me when I want something to go well. I just said, I hope Mom can get through to Auntie Dell. So as I grew up, I realized that I was always standing in the periphery of my intention. And sometimes I needed help to drag me into the center so that I could execute actions and achieve outcomes that I was looking to do. Because that's what we're here to talk about. The theme of today is the power of intention. But where does intention come from? The human brain is our most complex organ. And it seems to me that if you think about it, there would be a lot of differences across the spectrum of brains that are available in the world. And that's where intention is formed, and that's where people execute on the actions that they need to actually get to the outcome that they're looking for. But as I look out, the first thing I see are a bunch of physical distinctions. So the audience has got, different eye shapes and ear shapes and nose shapes and skin tones and hair color and eye color, and all of those things are beautiful, and that's what we call diversity. But what I can't see is how you perceive the world around you. And if you look left and look right at your fellow audience members in this beautiful venue today, you'll realize that nobody here is perceiving the world around them the same way that you are perceiving the world around you. And that is what we call neurodiversity. And neurodiversity, just like diversity, is everyone. It should never be an othering activity where we say, those neurodiverse people over there. No, I wasn't calling you neurodiverse. I was just it's more engaging if I engage you. Those neurodiverse people over there is something that nobody should ever say, because the world is one big neurodiverse collective. And that neurodiverse collective is made up of two groups of people. Neurotypicals make up about 80%, and neurodistinct, like myself, make up about 20%. So if you think about the fact that the neurodistinct individuals are about 20%, things that I'm about to talk about are going to make a lot more sense. So because the brain is where intention is formed, and with all this neurodiversity running around, you would think that there's a lot of diversity in intention. But I'm going to ask you to do something for me right now. Raise your hand if you intended to come to TEDxBrisbane today. That's what I thought the answer would be. I'm very good at predicting what you're going to do. It's a gift. The reason I asked that question is that last year I had every intention of coming to TEDxBrisbane. I bought tickets. I bought pay-it-forward tickets so that people who can't afford could actually get a ticket and come. I emailed people that I was going to be there. But when the day came, I was a no-show. I failed. My intention was formed and actions were taken, but I never delivered on the outcome. So being ambitious, I decided this year, with no success about this event under my belt whatsoever, that I would speak. And yes, an opportunity was presented. I didn't just show up here. And so I decided to grab a hold of the way my father used to work with me and help me. And it always reminds me of the Dr. Seuss quote, basically something to the effect of, to the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world. And that's how I felt about my dad. There was nothing, we shared this very, very special bond, and he was my best friend. And when I lost him, my world was empty. But speaking about being the center of my world, I started to enlist the help of everyone around me to make sure that I would be able to make it here today. And, my partner and her daughter have become the world to me. And not only does she, or they both advise me on everything, most importantly, they want to advise me on what I'm going to wear, because, rethink your wardrobe. You can't come out to with shorts on and everything. So we decided that we would go to a tailor and I would get measured for the suit that I'm wearing today. And we even picked this ostentatious liner. So. I know, completely snatched, right? And Juanita Wheeler, who's our executive director of TEDxBrisbane and our chief energy officer, she got together with me and she tried to convince me that I was a fabulous human. And I even got lost on the way to the Sunshine Coast. And I say that because the world is sometimes a confusing place. And neuroinclusion is all about giving the opportunity for people to be able to get where they need to be. So it was a bad day, but my photographs came out great. So the 11-month journey that I went through was overwhelming at times. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. I wanted to execute. I wanted to be here. And here I am, delivering the outcome. I work at Google. Saying that out loud, it still mystifies me. I'm still in a state of disbelief because I wanted to work at Google for 20 years, and I tried. I remember back in the late 90s, a coworker showed me the very simple search box, and he said that these guys in California downloaded the entire internet so they could build a better search engine. And I just remember walking away from that going, wow, that's really cool. I'd like to work there someday. So 40 plus applications later, and over a 20-year period, in May of 2020, I got an offer to finally get my job at Google. The first person I wanted to call was my mom, so I did that. And I told her, Mom, I got a job at Google. And she was so proud of me. She knew that Google would create a safe place for me, her autistic baby boy, and she was so proud and excited and happy. And I had already booked my flight to see her. At this point, COVID was raging. Hadn't seen her in about 9 months. And I'm flying to see her on Saturday morning. And she died on me on Friday night. And that was our last telephone conversation. And what do you do with that? I now have a new job. So I'm different now. I decided that I'm going to execute my job at Google a little differently. And I work very hard. And now I'm the chief innovation evangelist for Google Cloud. And my job is to evangelize to companies about delivering outcomes that they need that are important to their business. Because that first intention that you have, and that journey of actions that you take and other people take, and when you deliver on that outcome, that is the magical thing that I call innovation. Now, you may not agree with my definition, but I'm an innovation evangelist, so I have the microphone. And you may see that I'm bucking all TEDx convention by standing up here with a cube. Very, very bad. When people walk up on me and they find me, I usually have my cube in my hand. It soothes me. I like it. And so they usually ask me 2 questions. They say, how fast can you solve that cube? And then they say something to the effect of, solving a cube, is that an autistic thing? And I always walk away thinking to myself, an autistic thing. So the answer to the question is, on a good day, it takes me about 40 seconds. And I'm an autistic my entire life, but I've only been solving for about 2 years. So no, not an autistic thing. I got pinged by a coworker named Emmanuel Pacheco. He runs a sales vertical in Toronto, Ontario. He's a fellow Googler of mine. One day he pinged me and said, I'm going to teach you how to solve a Rubik's Cube. What he didn't know is that my entire life I had struggled with physical problem solving. And he shared his perspective with me that forget about the physical cube. All you're trying to solve is a computer problem. And I'm going to show you some innovative moves, and you'll be solving over the weekend for sure. Now, don't ask me to teach you because my partner says I'm a terrible teacher, and so don't do that because I'm too just don't give enough detail, I guess. So, but that weekend, I became a solver, and I never looked back. Now I solve it 70 times a day, if not more. The reason why the cube is important is that it reminds me of the facets of the perspectives and the number of actions that are required from everybody to actually deliver an outcome. It reminds me that inclusion of those perspectives is what we'd like to call neuroinclusion. Now, neuroinclusion is a business imperative. It's basically saying we have all kinds of minds, neurodiversity is everyone, but there's certain people that are going to perceive the world in a different way. And that perception, you mix in a little life experience and some societal norms, and you'll basically gain a perspective. And neuroinclusion, basically, in a corporation, it removes the standard echo chambers that exist, where somebody will come out and say, "This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it," and then 20% of the people walk back and say, "Not going to work that way." So I made this the focus of my doctorate that I'm going for right now, and I'm writing a thesis called "Innovating Innovation Methodology Through Neuroinclusion." And what I'm doing is I'm basically taking the methodology that's most commonly used for innovation, and I'm making it so that it's neuroinclusive. Yeah, the best part about getting a doctorate is if I'm completely wrong, I still get my doctorate, so happy. It's not always the case. And so as a neuroinclusion pioneer, I basically tell people that if you're trying to build something or trying to do something or trying to advance a product or trying to advance a process, remember that there's many perspectives around that you need to consider. Consider that the unique colors on this cube, each side of this, these centers here, consider that those represent a perspective or an action that needs to be taken. And as you align them, what you'll find is that you'll have better innovation outcomes. So go find your centers. Listen to everybody's perspectives. Include all of those things, and you too can go out and change the world. Thanks for listening.